Hi, my name is Danielle Neely, and welcome to the Industry Edge podcast, where we talk with leaders working in and for some of the hardest working industries, such as manufacturing, distribution, construction, and more. This episode is brought to you by KNC Marketing. KNC is a full-service marketing agency that helps B2B industrial companies grow their brand and increase sales. They serve as either a fully outsourced marketing partner or supplement in-house marketing teams. To learn more about KNC's brand development, marketing, and website design services, visit kncmarketingagency.com. Now, before introducing today's guest, I have to shout out executive and leadership coach Ginger Duncan, who actually introduced me to this rock star today. So, Ginger, you rock. You're the best. And then with that, I'm so excited to welcome Michele Herlein, founder and CEO of Culture Max, where she's helped create thriving organizational cultures for over 25 years. Michele has dedicated her career to the belief that our workplaces should inspire and energize us and not drain us. Her approach is all about doing the right thing by people, and by doing so, driving real business growth. Through her proven strategies, Michele has helped organizations unlock their full potential, creating environments where people and businesses flourish together. Michele, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Oh, yeah. And I love Ginger. Thank you, Ginger, for
Yeah,
introducing us.
you rock, girl.
Yes,
Awesome.
you.
Well, the first question is really, really easy. So, what did the early days of your career look like, and how did you get started in this?
Well, it's funny because I really kind of stumbled on it by accident, I would say. Back when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I got a degree in marketing, a minor in economics, and a 6-month-old baby. So when I started my career, I was getting degrees and becoming a mom all at the same time. And I lived in Illinois, and my thought was, gosh, most marketing majors graduating from Northern Illinois University moved to Chicago and got sales jobs. And I couldn't imagine raising a 6-month-old, raising a baby in a big city. And then in my mind, having a sales job was like an 80 an hour a week job. So I was pretty good at the school stuff. So I decided to go on for my master's degree. And it was the early 90s. And in my master's, it was in communication theory with a focus on organizational communication. And the idea of corporate culture was just emerging in the research and the literature on does it exist? Is it really something that can be studied? So I started learning about it then. The other significant part about that time was that I also, to pay for my tuition, I took on a teaching assistant position. So I was teaching interpersonal communication and public speaking, and I got my love of teaching other people. So when I graduated, I was 7 months pregnant with my second daughter and moved to Iowa with my then husband's job. And so in Iowa, I kept teaching at two different colleges, one in Illinois, one in Iowa. And a lot of my students were non-traditional students. And they said to me, Michele, what you are teaching us in the classroom, if our organizations actually operated that way and people in our organizations behaved that way, our workplaces would be a much better place to be. And so back then, I also had with one of the colleges, they were working with John Deere. So I was also able to go in and actually work in corporate America. And I started a consulting firm that led me to Bandag Incorporated. I was a consultant with Bandag in Iowa for several years, and they were starting a whole core curriculum around their core values. And the CEO was the founder's son, and he called it his great social experiment. So he wanted to throw out everything he knew about in MBA school and really focus on the people of the company. And the company was thriving. So I was working, I helped them establish their what we called the core curriculum, teaching people interpersonal communication skills and learning more about themselves and emotional intelligence and leadership. And we did amazing things, and it was a great time. Well, and then Bridgestone bought Bandag for $1 billion in 2007, and Bridgestone realized that they not only were purchasing retreading technology, which what Bandag did, but they noticed something different in their leaders and in the people in the organization. They felt something different, which was a different culture, and they wanted that for Bridgestone as well. So in 2009, they transferred me to Nashville, and I worked at Bridgestone on culture transformation, and we had a really great time there and did fabulous things. I left in 2014 and had met Bob Higgins, who's the CEO of Barge Design Solutions, at a culture club that we had created years before, and then became his chief human resource officer. So had the opportunity to really influence and implement and work with fabulous leaders to create great employee experiences and great cultures that in all three examples produced outstanding financial results for the company beyond which any of them could have realized.
Yeah, that is amazing. Oh my gosh. That is something that seems to be a trend with who I've talked to is I accidentally kind of came into this, and that is super interesting. I think also you said you have two girls, so you have two girls, is that what I
Yes.
heard?
Yeah.
I can't imagine that people that do that as well, like 80 hours a week in the thick of raising babies, like making
Yeah.
like, so I completely understand that. That's a lot of why Michelle and I did what we did was we wanted a little bit more balance in our home life and then also be able to still work and provide value for businesses. And it sounds like you're doing that too. That's amazing. Okay. So for business owners and high achievers, these leaders that you would typically work with on these kinds of projects who are really busy, what are some like three actionable steps that they could take from your opinion that would start improving some of that workplace culture?
Yeah, I would say the three things are clarity, alignment, and collective values. And so, what I mean by that is for clarity, you really need to get clarity on what are the most important objectives. You can call them whatever you want. You can call them goals, you can call them initiatives, you can call them strategies, you can call them objectives. But whatever you call them, you need to have clarity on what your top 3 to 5 things are because a lot of times, and when I say clarity, I mean clarity across anyone who's leading in your organization. I actually call that horizontal alignment. So make sure you know what's important. If you have too many main things or too many objectives, you get scattered and you don't achieve anything. So too many main things is really zero main things. And then when you really get focused on and get clarity on what's important to you, then you can line up all your energy and your resources and your people behind it and really make them happen.
Yeah.
So clarity, the first thing, that alignment, I talked a little bit about horizontal alignment. So you have to make sure that across the board, anyone that has the responsibility of managing other people in your organization are also on board with the direction that you're going. And they understand it, they understand their part in it, and they're responsible for other people, so they know how to bring their people along. The other kind of alignment is what I call vertical alignment, and that is making sure that everyone in your company knows their part and knows how they are contributing and adding value to the direction that you're going.
Mhm.
The other part of vertical alignment is making sure that all of your organizational, that your environment is aligned behind what you're saying is important so that people's jobs, that people are rewarded in ways that promote the behaviors that you want them to do to get the results that you want them to achieve, or that they have the skills and you're developing in ways so they know how to do what you're expecting them to do. So the alignment around the most important objectives, both of all of your people and the environment in which they work. I always say that if you can put a high performer in a poor environment, and the environment will win every time. So you
Mhm.
need to make sure that your alignment or your environment is aligned to support people in their performance. And then the third thing is the collective values. So having the first two things around clarity and alignment are about what you are doing and what you are going to accomplish. The collective values are the agreement around how you're going to accomplish them. So, um, They should be identified on what are your most important values for your organization, and then they should be clarified in behavioral terms, and then again aligned with your environment, your systems, and your processes, so that people know how to live those values, and you should reward them for doing so.
Yeah, I love that. It's like a framework that you can actually follow because I feel like so often, I'm in marketing, culture and marketing have like a really fun relationship, but I feel like oftentimes what we can see is that people think just a mission and vision and values on your website is enough, but you have to live those out and you have to make them living and breathing and that common vision, like where is the company going? And how
Right.
does each person participate and they all have a role to play, but you as the leader have to set that vision and create that culture. And it takes, it's not just a mission and vision on your website or on the walls of your company. It has to be living
Exactly.
and breathing.
Yeah.
Totally.
It
I love,
has to, and I always worked very closely with marketing teams in the companies I've worked for because they really are one and the same. With the marketing, it's to your client experience, right? And how the customers and clients are experiencing your business. On the culture side, it is the employee experience and how the people that work for you are experience the company. And when
yep.
those two things are aligned, magic happens. Yeah.
Totally. Absolutely. I saw like we saw in our business a really big shift after COVID and then like just keeping like employee retention, people were struggling to keep employees, people were struggling to attract employees. What have you seen with people that work with you and kind of really go into culture and do it really well? What have you seen with how that helps with, retention and just overall attractiveness of the business when they're doing it right? What have you seen for people you've worked with?
Well, and that really is one of the big metrics is the retention of your employees, and then the time to fill, and how you have good candidates who want to come work for you. So I
Mhm.
know at Barge, for example, when I first started working there, we were high double digits turnover. And after we started implementing the cultural practices that we implemented, we went down to single digits in turnover. We were way below the industry average. And we were calculating that it was saving the company around $1 million a year in turnover costs. So those are real dollars, and that's a real impact on the company because in the COVID times you mentioned, those were unprecedented times. And we were fortunate enough to have such a strong culture that we were able to shift, and make sure that people felt connected. We started weekly meetings so that anytime that we knew something, we would make sure everybody else in the organization knew what we knew, and we were constantly communicating internally to our employees. So we did not experience that high turnover.
Mhm.
But that is so true. And then the other thing is that attraction.
Mhm.
The labor force is very the war on talent is real. It's a real war on talent, and the cultures, more and more people are looking for a great work environment. What their personal lives, how they feel every day matters, and so culture is right up there on job seekers um, list of what's important when they're looking for a new job. And so they're examining what is the culture like. They're aware of the bait and switch. So they probably, really want to know what it feels like to work there. And uh, when you have a great culture, when your employees are telling you you have a great culture through surveys or through Glassdoor ratings, that helps you attract the top talent to your organization and then obviously keep them there.
Totally. That absolutely. $1 million in turnover. Like if you can't, because I think that's something too of, oh, I think there's a perception that some people have about culture of just, oh, is it donuts on Friday or is it, just like
Exactly.
those really low value, those are fun too, but those aren't what the needle movers are in business. And those aren't the things that are going to make somebody stay. But the people that are pouring more into the mental, the physical, the spiritual, and making that environment not, this is not just where somebody works. This is a majority of a lot of people's lives is spent in
Like,
the workplace or working. Um,
exactly.
so you have to make that an environment in which, people feel heard, they feel valued. But that's some serious ROI. If that's not going to make somebody think that it works, and I don't know what will.
Yeah, it is not just for me, it's not just a humane thing to do. Like I am in it and I've always been in it because as you said, the majority of people that work for corporations they spend the majority of their waking hours at work. And that means that that workplace and the energy of that workplace has a lot of power over that person. And
Mhm.
not just while they're there, but when they go home as well. So if they feel frustrated and devalued and not recognized at work, or if they're not getting to express and be who they really are, they'll go home and that negative energy will spill over into their families and their community.
Mhm.
And the opposite is true too. If they go to work and they're filled and they feel like they've contributed, and were valued, that positive energy spills over into their family and their community. So for me, it is my tiny little way of helping humanity. But I do like to say it's not just a humane thing to do, it's a really good business because the turnover metrics is one. In the companies I worked with, the last company I worked for, when I started, the first full fiscal year was 2015. The last full fiscal year was 2022. Profits were 7 times what they were from 15 to 2022. And
Mhm.
you're talking millions and millions of dollars.
Heck yeah,
So
that's
that
amazing.
that alignment of your people, you can do things that you couldn't even imagine when you
Mhm.
get that alignment of your people behind you.
Totally. And especially like I think of even, there's like the mass scale of that, but then even like the more like smaller middle-sized businesses, I think of like myself or my team or, some of the clients that we have, I'm like, if they lose, a key leader or a key manager in their organization, what that does to disrupt their whole entire operation, like
Exactly.
that not only is it disrupting their business and their internal, communications and stuff like that, but if it's we're talking about manufacturing people and people that have to keep things moving, if you're losing people left and right, your product is not getting made, service is not being done, and you're losing money. So when you're losing those people, it's super impactful. It can be impactful negatively, totally. So
Absolutely.
that's awesome. So I do we talk about culture and how do you see this happening? We have such like a hybrid, a lot of people work from home now for larger companies. There's a lot that have gone back to work like in a normal like office setting after COVID. But how are leaders, maintaining good culture and across organizations that are remote or have people that are out in the field that don't necessarily report to an office all the time? What are you seeing with those kinds of businesses and how do they play there?
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch because there have been different approaches, and there are now companies who are just calling everybody back to the office because they don't know how to manage a remote workforce or they don't know how to manage a hybrid workforce. And I personally think that that is a shame. And the reason for that is I do believe in being together and I do believe in meetings. And I think that there are some meetings and events that need to be in person. I also firmly believe that if you meet each other, like if you have that FaceTime together, then you are stronger when you're not together and you're remote in different offices. You can still connect and work well and synergize and get stuff done.
Mhm.
The fallacy in my mind is that we have not moved from the metric of measuring performance based on hours worked to results that have been produced. So for many years, and it started in the industrial age with manufacturing, you had shifts, and they would run 3 shifts, so they were 24/7. And someone came in and they had to, build their widget for the 8 hours that they were in the manufacturing plant. And it was about the hours for their job. And so they were doing their job if they worked the full 8 hours. And as we've shifted, and there's a lot of jobs, there are some jobs that you absolutely still need to be in person, obviously, to do, like manufacturing. Um, but there are some jobs that can be done remote, and more of the knowledge or professional working jobs are jobs that I believe that can be done from anywhere.
Mhm.
And for me, it is more about defining the outcomes of those jobs. So,
Mhm.
and that's the shift from what is this role in my company supposed to produce and provide for the organization, and what do those results look like? And then how do I manage the results? Not the time it took them, not where they produced them, not even how they produced them, as long as they're in line with the values, but that they did meet their deadlines and achieve what you wanted them to achieve. And that's challenging. In sales roles, it's easier because it's black and white. You can set a sales target and then you know if someone missed their target or not. But in other types of roles, defining what those outcomes look like is harder. And
Mhm.
that's why I think it's become harder for managers to manage people that are not physically in the office, where they assume that if they're in the office sitting behind their desk that they're being productive and they're working.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. Like instead of what making it more outcome based of like what is the actual result and the outcome that and doing it backwards from there versus
Exactly.
it doesn't necessarily have to be attached to an hour or a seat. It's about the outcome and the result and
That's
the final project, the product for sure. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Um, you talk about, you've mentioned the word humane and that, being humane, it's not just the warm and fuzzies about doing the right thing, but that it's really good for business. And you've mentioned a couple examples of how it's good for business. Can you share something that just made, like when you think back on a moment or a project or working with a customer or client in the past, like what like makes you like your heart just feel good and also the results that it's had for a business or not, maybe not even a business, like what is the emotional transformation that you've seen in some of like these leaders that you've worked with and people you've worked with?
Yeah, there's so many scenarios going through my head
Oh, I
right
bet.
now, yeah, which is really fun. Um, One of them, and I'll go back to Bandag, when the CEO decided to sell the company to Bridgestone, and it was a publicly traded company. He had been on this culture effort for a long time, and he came to me, he's like, Michelle, did it matter? Now I'm selling. And did it matter? So I pulled a group of people together and we did a timeline of all of the things we did on culture creation and culture continuity and had this timeline. And at the end of it, he said, wow, if we wouldn't have done all of this and the investment in our people and the culture of this company, we would have been gobbled up by the competition many, many, many years ago. We wouldn't have been able to stand our own, and stand up and hold our own in this industry. So
Yeah.
that was very validating
Yeah.
to me. In another company I worked for, this was a employee that was in another office, so not in the headquarters office, and was working with a client, and the client could tell that something was different about the company and asked the employee, and the employee was then talking about what we were doing and owning it. Like, well, this is what we're doing here, and this is why it's important and why it matters and how things have changed. So this employee in a remote office was selling this to a client who wanted then to hire us to go and help their business do the exact same thing. So it's an energy that people can feel. Culture is something that you really feel. And when your employees and other offices feel it and are sharing it with the clients, and the clients want a part of it, that is very special. That's
Absolutely.
very
I
special.
love that. Oh my gosh, that employee was doing the Lord's work not only for you, but
Yeah,
he's doing it for that business as well. But yeah, I mean, you can't deny that kind of energy, the energy shift if their client even noticed it. That's
exactly.
that is amazing. I love that. It's so true. I'm like, and I don't know, it's just something that can live on for a long time. It's like he's now that business owner or that CEO, it's like he can look back and know that he changed the course of not only that business's life, and even though he's sold, but also imagine all of the lives that he touched and what
Yeah,
he was able to do for not only just themselves, but maybe their families and the ripple effect that it has. That's
and
amazing.
in ways you might not ever know, like that. And those were some other scenarios that when you asked the question that came to my mind, I was a lot of times people that I have talked to and employees, they're like, Michelle, this has not just helped me at work and be a better professional. It's helped me at home. You know, it's helped me with my spouse. It's helped me with my children. So
Mhm.
it really, those are the things that are really meaningful. And the last thing is the people that I've worked with. I just recently reconnected with two different people that I worked with at two different companies. And they worked for me. I hired and developed them, and they are now thriving. You know, they are thriving in their jobs and, you know, at the top of their game and doing really well. And that also brings me a lot of joy.
Heck yeah. That's like, that's the best, like somebody that you were able to mentor and teach and then just totally crushing it and doing things that you never even would have ever thought. That's amazing.
And now they're doing it in new companies. So that's another ripple effect. So they're taking everything that they learned and doing that with the people that they're now working with. So
I love that. That's amazing. That
yeah,
is amazing. Well, I also want to talk to you about something exciting that you shared with me that you wrote a book or you're writing a book that's supposed to be launching in September of this
that's
year.
correct.
So
Yeah.
25, cultural excellence. So obviously, I could say what inspired you to write the book, but I would assume that it has to be some of these stories. So what made you want to get all of this on paper and what's your hope for that book launch?
Well, and so I'm at a really great point in my life and in my career, and I have really dedicated my career to helping, like, first and foremost, helping people be the best people that God created them to be, so they can bring their gifts and talents into the world and the workplace. And as my responsibilities grew, as my career evolved, I had more influence over the organizational system. So I shifted my personal purpose to create organizations that allowed people to be their true authentic selves. And I've had success in doing that in the corporate world and the companies that I've worked with as an employee and also the clients that I've worked with. And it's something that I want to make sure lives on. So now I have a passion for teaching other people, HR professionals, and working with CEOs and executive teams that really are dedicated to creating great cultures and great employee experiences, because it's hard work. It's not like, you know, it's I in the book I use the analogy to exercise, that you can't just go to the gym once and expect to have lasting health results. You know, to maintain your health, you have to make sure that you're eating well and exercising continuously your entire life. And for good organizational health, you have to pay attention to it all the time as well. So um, so with that, I felt like with writing the book, so the book is a how-to guide. And so it comes from a point of wanting this to continue rippling, you know, not to just people that I get to work with and have the fortune to be around, but to people who might pick up the book and then they can read it and bring that into their organization as well. So it is a how-to guide. The name is Cultural Excellence, the Leader's Guide to Strengthening the Heart of Your Organization. It's being published by Forbes, and it will be out in September of this year.
That's so good. The
Yeah.
ripple. I can already see it now. That's got to be the title of our episode because we've talked about that
A
ripple.
ripple. Yeah. I love
That's
that.
so exciting. That's so congratulations.
Thank
That is so
you.
exciting. I will definitely be reading that because
Thank you.
us in marketing, we hear these kind of pain points from clients a lot of, we're struggling to keep people or we got somebody good and then they left so I think that there's such a part to play and there's a way that it can be done really, really well. And I think that you figured that way out. So I will definitely be grabbing that book because yes, we work on some internal campaigns a lot with our clients and we've seen them pay off really well and it's all about doing the kinds of things that getting alignment and having it start from the top and work its way
Got
down.
it. That's
It
right.
it works wonders for not only making people feel bought in and feel better about themselves and where they're at, but it builds business too. So
Yes, it does.
we've seen it happen. Well, this has been so amazing. To wrap it all up, we've been talking with Michele Herlein, founder and CEO of Culture Max. Michelle, tell us all where we can learn more about you and what you do.
Well, so you can go to culture-max.com to learn about Culture Max, and then michelleherline.com will be coming soon, and that will be in conjunction with the book launch.
Amazing. I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really
You
appreciate it.
did, Gal. It was really fun. Nice talking to you.